I'd like to call this meeting to order. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following: discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. 1, Human Relations Council. 2, Planning District. Do I have a motion?
And I would like to add to the closed session discussions in regards to the sale of real estate, and that will be at the old BMS site.
Do we need how do we get this thing on closed setting?
He'd asked to amend the agenda, and
Right.
we need a second, and then vote on amending the agenda.
Okay. Okay, we have a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye. Now we need a motion to go into closed meeting.
So moved.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Can't get over it.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're in closed meeting. Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
So moved. I'll do
Would
the second.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
It's all right. It's my business.
It's your vote.
Say aye.
It's your vote.
Coming out of closed meeting.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
It's too much going on.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this day pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in a motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Annette?
Aye. Does she not have the
Aye.
form? Where's
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next item on our agenda is our invocation, and
things to think about.
this is when we observe a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand, and after we observe that moment of silence, we will be led in the pledge by Mr. Meadows, our county administrator.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is not on the agenda, but on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we'd like to congratulate and commend all veterans for doing Veterans Day for the service and say thank you. So,
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, thank you for your service as well.
I don't know whether serving on the board is tougher than being in Vietnam, but it's getting pretty close. We did have a delegation from the Department of Highways, and I don't think
He's not able to be with us.
Mr. Clark had is in a meeting in Roanoke, and he didn't think he would be able to get here to give us an update on the road projects and issues in Montgomery County. So we'll move on to public hearings. The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on November 6th and November 9th. It's the Appalachian Power Company request for utility easement.
I could take this, Chair. As you know, before we can grant any easements, the county, you have to hold a public hearing. The county received a request from AEP for the county to convey a 10-foot right-of-way and easement for power, and this is on the former AEP property that the county owns. The easement request is right along the boundary, and what AEP is doing is they're taking down the existing line, which is an overhead line, and that line's had a lot of problems with being knocked down due to weather or other circumstances, and they're moving that line underground, and the best route to put it is on our side of the property, and like I said, it's right along the boundary line, so it shouldn't have any negative effects on the boards or any future use of that property. And actually a positive, according to AP, is it will, once that line goes in, it'll be able to provide service to that property as well in the future. Right now, there's nothing on that property it's undeveloped. So they made that request, and that service is for local service within that area. So if there's any questions, I can ask them. But the easement and the plat is on your is in your agenda.
Does the board have any questions of our attorney? Well, we'll open it up for public comment. If you'd like to comment on this public hearing, you can please do so at this time. Seeing no one coming forward, we will close the public hearing. Next order of business would be to go into work session. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Sheriff funding for remote access software and mobile data terminals, and Resolution Mountain Valley Pipeline. Do I have a motion to go into work session?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're now in work session.
Mr. Chair, the first item we have this evening under work session is a discussion of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And we have Kevin Bird with us this evening from the PDC. As you're aware from the information, the PDC recently completed a Parks and Rec Master Plan for the town of Christiansburg. And we've had some conversations with them about doing something similar for us. So Kevin, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just wanted to overview with you the Appalachian Regional Commission program that the Commission uses for our local government members. And then we also a quick overview of potential scope of services for the county. Each year the Commission receives local technical assistance planning funds from the Appalachian Regional Commission. And the way that we handle this is we offer these funds up to our local governments to do 50% matching projects. And what we've identified here is a request from Montgomery County to update their Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So essentially, local government receives the services for 50% cost, and then the ARC program picks up the other 50%. And this is built on using commission staff time, really is what that pays for. And we worked on a project similar to this for the town of Christiansburg last year. It was a 12-month project, and we worked closely with the town staff and with their Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission there, and incorporated a lot of public feedback and opportunities for the public to engage in the process. And I generated a master plan for the town, which the council sought to adopt this past June. So there, we have just a rough sketch of a scope for you. We would get into finer detail with Parks and Recreation staff and others on administration, get a lot closer, but this is what we did for the town of Christiansburg with data collection, research and analysis, community needs, and then recommendations in a final plan. And each month we are essentially working with that Recreation Commission that you all appoint, and we work with them on the process and work with staff closely. So just wanted to overview the planning process and how the funding works if you all would like to pursue this with the Commission. be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Questions, comments?
Don't take this the wrong way, I'm not a big fan of studies, and I wanted to, before I spend $17,500 on a study, help me to understand why this is something that we need, rather than have our staff come back and report to us, and let's use that $17,500 to actually help build a ball field or build a playground. Help me to understand why this is money well spent.
Sure. I think the main thing is investments. If there's requests for either land acquisitions or increased programs or increased staffing, this validates why those decisions should be made. So it's going through to evaluate your facilities, the programs that you're offering to the community, find out if there's redundancy or if there's a lack of program that should be out there. And then if you have additional staffing needs, those will all get addressed in this process. So it helps you evaluate where to invest, either that capital improvements program or if it's staffing.
Thank you.
Sure.
The comment that Chris had, or the question, before we get too far from it, I'd like to comment that I love seeing another set of eyes looking at the project, especially when it comes to additional staffing, because if I was like the Parks and Recreation Director, I may see some opportunities that might not be justified. And when you got a different set of eyes looking at the needs, it's almost like an outside evaluation of your programs and needs and so forth. And some of you may agree or disagree with it, but I'm going to ask, is there any more questions of Kevin before we move on?
Well, my only comment would be that one of the problems is not having enough in-house people to be able to do all the different things that would be required if you're really going to do a study in a timely manner, because so many things come to you in your just routine day-to-day, you know, that you sort of sometimes need a little bit of help. And that's where I see that part of it coming in, because I just don't see how Parks and Rec would be able to do a study, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, to tack on to that, I think it gives validity to the study, you know, and there's a lot of things that I believe our staff is capable of doing in-house. The thing about it is finding the time to do it, because
Yeah, that's the problem.
through the years that I've been on the board, we've been asking them to do more with less, and the rubber band is stretched to where it's about to pop, and you load a study on them again, and the rubber band just might pop at that particular time. And when you have, in the local governments that I've been around in my time, you know, they were capable of doing some things in-house, but when the people looked at it, it didn't have, even such as a pay study. You could do a pay study internally, but when you had an outside consultant come in and do the pay study, people were more amenable to accepting what was in the study than internal people doing the study and presenting. I'm just using that for an example. And we probably have the capabilities within the county to do a study, but we just don't have the time to put that on our staff, you know.
Let me have
Yeah, go ahead.
a word at this, and my thought is this, and that is that our people are already up to
Right.
where they barely can breathe, and even if we had them to do a study, it will take them 2 to 3, 4, 5 times longer to do it than what it would if we had it turned over to someone like this that could do it. And cost-wise, if they have to pull their people off of something else in order to get this study done, you know, surely they're not holding enough up for double what it's going to cost to get this study done. So I feel like we're going to get our money's worth if we're going to only pay half of what they're going to charge. Then I can't see any way that we can run away from it. we better be running to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creed. The other comments?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
You good?
Very good. I know that the PDC will do a good job, and the cost is very small compared to what it might be if we had to do it alone.
Well, I say thank you, Kevin. Thank you for coming tonight. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. Next item is sheriff funding for remote access software and mobile data terminals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Ms. Edmonds is going to present that with support from the sheriff this evening.
Yeah, I'm just making
Yeah,
sure
he's
he's back there.
He's coming.
Yeah. I guess you can be chief deputy tonight, right?
Oh, Lord.
She's already
Lord.
an attorney.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He won't give me a gun either. Okay.
There's some things we're very thankful for.
What I keep hearing.
Thank you,
Is
ma'am.
this the same?
It's good.
Okay, here. I will.
It's also in Dropbox.
Thank you. It helps me.
I'm good.
Look at those. Thank you. You could be like,
I like that one.
Good to scribble on.
And I'd like you to see those, really. I'm just an old person who likes to print.
I must be one more.
Okay, what I want to do this evening is pick up where we left off at the last work session. There were some items that we needed to complete, so where I'm going to start with these slides is exactly where we left off. At the last meeting, whoops, too fast. At the last meeting, there was discussion about the in-car cameras and the body cameras. And what the sheriff had come up with was a package that would put the cameras in the cars. And with that also came the body cameras for 40 of the deputies associated with the in-car cameras. The body cameras were free if you bought the in-car cameras. In addition to that, there was body cameras for the SROs and some of the investigators. With the discussion that occurred at the last work session, the request was made back to the sheriff's office to come up with the cost to provide body cameras for additional people, additional deputies in the sheriff's office. And so, although it's not referenced on the agenda, that's one of the items to be discussed tonight, are the additional body cameras. At the last meeting of the board, if you remember, we talked about the credit from the regional jail offsetting the largest portion of this cost. And so additional funds in order to provide the 52 body cameras and the 40 in-car cameras was $12,450, and the board approved that resolution at the last meeting. So we had, with the little red check mark up on the left-hand side, patrol 40 body cameras, 5 SROs, and 7 in investigations for a total of 52. The sheriff's office has gone back to identify the other deputies that would need body cameras, and those are the numbers on the right-hand side. There would be a total of 70. They actually did receive each camera at a lower price than had been quoted previously, so there is some savings as opposed to paying the full price for it. It's broken down there by where they would go, and the total cost of 70 body cameras is $28,280. And I'll stop at this point if anybody has any questions for the sheriff over here about who gets them, how they're allocated.
Questions for the sheriff?
About, when we had discussed beforehand, the jail staff, there was some concerns because you can't use those body cameras in certain areas of the jail. And if I'm looking at, we're adding those 30. And I understand about the court security because they're sometimes going to be serving papers and having that. And then they also work some of the ball games and the like. And I know some of the jail staff does as well. But could you help explain the 30 for the jail?
Yeah, so that topic came up in a command staff meeting when we were discussing how many more we really needed. And we got to talking about specifically the courthouse and the jail. Well, obviously in the courtroom, we can't have them all. We can anywhere else in the courthouse, down in the basement with the holding of the inmates prior to coming up, meeting on those elevators and all the holding spaces. So that would help justify, and back in the cell blocks and such as that, can't have them all when we're facing the cell blocks because of privacy issues. So the court security and civil process could and would find valuable use for them. Also remember, they are turn on, turn off.
Right.
And that's something we're really going to have to work with folks to ensure that they're doing and keep up with the fact that they're doing it. That takes care of the court security and civil process because there are actually 27 people assigned in that division.
Right, and I'm good with, I understood that from the last meeting about the 27, but I, at least on ours, on page 2, it's got the 30 for the jail, and that was, and so, are you, because it's my understanding that in the courthouse, there are video cameras.
They are recorded cameras in the courthouse, they're recorded cameras in the jail, in all of the corridors, in the booking, docking, and such as that, but none of the private areas.
Right.
And we can't even wear body cameras when we go back. Now, we may go back to break up a fight in one of the cell blocks and have that body camera turned on for the purpose of documenting the fight.
Well, I guess my question is, are you saying you don't need the 30 cameras that are listed on page 2? Or maybe am I
Page
missing
3.
something? On my checklist, it's got 27 court security. I get that.
Okay?
But the 30 for the jail is where I'm
That's
having.
the assigned people in the jail. That work for me in the jail.
Right, but they're not allowed to wear the body cameras when they're going back in the cell blocks.
They're not allowed to wear them when they're dealing with the inmates in their individual jail cells.
But then the rest of it is videotaped already. Is that right?
It is.
And so and I'm supportive of the body cameras, but I'm not understanding where those 30 are needed. And
Okay. The eventuality that they were wearing them, they were called to a fight in cell block, whatever. Once they arrived or en route, they could turn it on. Of course, our elevator does have a camera in it.
Okay.
The stairwells, we do have cameras. All the interior locking doors, and you can't see everything of the rec deck. So this would be anywhere the correctional officer couldn't see with the already recorded video system that we have in the jail.
All right. In any one shift, how many deputies do you have working?
Well,
As
have
far
the
as for the jail, not the patrol officers I get.
Over 24 hours, there would be 8.
Can I ask while we're looking at 30? Then if you've got 8, and then there's only a few areas that you're not going to be able to see that aren't already being recorded,
I understand.
then why is the request for 30 instead of 8?
And that's where I wanted them to go with me Monday morning. And that's where we came in behind under the stands on the east side at the Virginia Tech football games. Because we buy 8 cameras and they just switch the cameras off. And those 8 cameras are going to be needed when we need them under the 10 or 15 correctional officers working, the magistrate's office, the emergency first aid room, the transportation vans, and quite honestly, the officers working in the stands making arrests.
Well, and I get that aspect as far as, because my understanding, civil division works a lot of their games. And so how, you're
So
saying
the court security, and
Right,
we can't
right.
mix those two up
Right,
because
right.
the
I got
jail
the-
is one thing and the court's the other.
And I guess, again, it's the 30 for the jail. You're saying you've got 14 correctional officers working on a given Saturday or Thursday night.
Whichever,
And
Black Friday.
so if you've got 14 working over there, and then you've got 8 in your jail, that's still only 22 roughly for body cameras.
And that's, the rest of them are just not being used.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Just like I'm gonna have 8 or 9 on the road in patrol on day and evening, and due to illness, a family medical leave act, whatever the case may be, somebody's not gonna be there, somebody's not gonna be working, someone's not gonna be used. So it's sort of like another individual piece of equipment assigned to a deputy for their use, and
as far as in the jail though, I get where the deputies take their vehicles home, that their body camera's gonna be going home with them at night, so I understood where 40, but the jail, the people are coming there to report, it's not the same thing, and that's why I was looking at, why would you need 30?
that was simply to cover everyone who worked in the jail.
Okay, thank you.
And if the board chooses to give me 15, then I'm thankful for that, but I really need enough to be able to cover correctional officers working at ball games behind the scenes that no one ever sees.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Like I said, I know I asked a bunch of questions.
No, that's okay. Any other questions?
Jim, any questions?
I have one comment to add that, being a former police chief, I think you want a fixed responsibility with the equipment. If he's issued camera 29 and camera 29 is abused, and they'll take better care when it's personally, because I'm sitting there thinking, when you was talking about the cameras, well, I'm glad they don't have to trade guns, because you got 8 guns in the department and these guys are off, and so you fix responsibility and you hold them accountable for the care of the equipment.
Actually, that's a really good point. I hadn't even thought of that.
Me either. Takes the
You
chief.
could actually have 4 or 5 of your cameras get into a fight the same night if you don't have them to put on.
Well, the fight has happened before, but the cameras have never been there.
We ready?
Okay.
All right, okay.
But one more quick, I'll promise I'll be quick. I'm doing my math, 70, the 70 cameras come out to $28,000, that's about $400 a piece, am I doing my math right? So if we were to go with 62, the savings would be roughly about $3,200.
About
If they offered the same break with the number of cameras.
If they offer the same break, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the points I don't know if I made clear, is that
Price went
given the package that they're buying, they got a reduced per unit price. on
Okay.
it. It would have been, I think it's $500 a camera.
One other question before you move on. I'm sitting there thinking, and you might have answered this last time, but I'm thinking about lifespan of the cameras. Like, is it 5 to 6 years, or?
Yes, sir,
What-
Brian, it is technology.
Yeah.
It's subject to technical failures.
Right.
And there's some built in here for, plain and simple, just for
redundancy just to have.
redundancy. When one breaks down and we have to send it back for repairs, then we have another one to issue. And the cameras will be downloaded to the server, similar to the way we do our instant-based reporting now. Everyone has a number, and mine's W, and then the last 3 digits of my social security number. And every time a report's written, that code goes to the side of that report. So with that said, that we could set them up that way to where it would be the last letter of the deputy's name and the last 3 digits of the social security number. That's what we identify the footage by. So with that being said, there's several ways we can set it up, but that's just one.
I'm good. We're ready to move.
All right, now, are we going on to the Patrol Scout, or are we still on this proposal? Because I've got some questions about the Patrol Scout.
If you're ready to leave cameras, we'll move on. Now we're at Patrol Scout. Again, this is just the same slide we had the last time, talking about the ability to be able to remotely to review what's on the cameras. The cost of the software and connections for 40 for the in-car cameras is $38,409. And I'll stop at this point and let the sheriff answer your questions.
And actually, on the Patrol Scout, heard a whole lot more about this, looked at it a whole lot more. And actually, this is something we can remote in with a smartphone or an Android-based phone. And if there's a situation going on that has a high demand volume for call for deputies to be on the scene with the positions of their cars, we could actually sit back. We don't even have to have a laptop if we don't have it available. We can remote into the cameras. We can tell people to move vehicles to certain locations if they're still in them, to get a 360-degree perimeter and look at the perimeter of the scene of something that may be going on, if it's a search or if it's a hostage situation, whatever the case may be. And even if it's a traffic stop. And some people say, well, deputies may not like that. Well, if the deputies don't like it, perhaps they're not doing their job correctly, and perhaps they should be getting over not liking things, because oversight is simply as simple as me picking up this right here and hit record. And I could tape everything going on in this room, just like it's being taped right now anyway. But with that being said, the people that have these clip everything except for the worst parts of what took place. And we want to see everything that took place. And we can't just download portions. We download all of it. And then it becomes evidence, either for or against. And that's what the Patrol Scout gets for $38,400. And I'll leave that to the board's discretion as to whether they want to spend the money for that. I think it's a needed item, more so now than I did at the last meeting. But if the board chooses not to spend the money, then that's fine. I feel very fortunate that you've gone as far as you've gone with it.
I'm picking at you a little bit, but remember at last meeting you said, what was the priorities? And you said more body cameras, because more body cameras weren't on the budget at that point in time. And you said that's the priority. And I think us board heard that and kind of said, okay, the Scout program is not as important. We were trying to prioritize.
It really wasn't. I mean, Mr. Tuck, I'll admit it, but by the time I had 5 others sitting around me saying, hey, this is what we can do, it became more of a priority than I realized. So with that being said, I'm fine if the board doesn't want to approve it. The benefit, if you do, it helps us. We can get it otherwise. We can get it after the fact. We just can't see it as it's going on.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. King?
Just got one thing, Sheriff, if you would. If you get this system here and just say, somebody called in and said, your deputy come by my house 100 miles an hour, can you turn this on and see what is going on at that time? Or do they have to be stationary?
Now this refers to the in-car cameras.
Right.
I can remote in and look what took place at that time. But if it's just stored in the camera, I have to pull it out I think we can remote in. I can remote into the camera, but it's not the body cam. It's the in-car
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And then the in-car camera it's fixed straight ahead of the windshield.
Right.
So, it has to be pointed at the front door or wherever the encounter takes place.
But
Well, that's what I was saying. If they was going down the road and somebody just called in and said, your deputy done this, can y'all pull it up and say, I don't think he did because we
We did that with the belt system, and we just turned it to a DVD and say, if you'd like to make a complaint, come on in, but I'd like for you to look at something before you consider making the complaint. And say, would you like to watch the video of that stop? And we don't have that ability now because we didn't have a plan in place to replace and rebuild and replace the redundant old system when it became worn out. So with that being said, yes, we can. And yes, we can find when our deputies have done something they shouldn't have done.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, you know how some people may call and complain. I'm trying to protect everybody
I am
with my
too,
decision.
because right now, a complaint can take, against a deputy, depending on what the severity of the complaint is, it can take up to 6 to 8 months. Sometimes you get to the bottom of it, and sometimes you never get to the bottom of it.
That's what I was hoping this would do, so if somebody complained, you could bring them in there the next day or two and say, look, no, he didn't, or she didn't do this. Yeah.
Can someone tell me what the cost of what we looked at the last time we were here was?
It would be the scalp was included, but the body cameras were not. That $28,000, if I remember right, was not in the last presentation.
No, this, what's on the screen right now, the cost of that, the package was $242,450. The jail credit went against that, so you netted out additional dollars of $12,450.
Okay, so we were looking at $230,000 or thereabout. Is that what you're saying?
242.
242,000, I'm sorry.
Right now-
242,000.
Right.
And right now, if I'm not looking at something wrong with it, it's $73,089.
Well, we haven't finished yet.
There's more coming
We got one more item, and then we'll go over all the cost. If we're done with the remote access here, I'll go on to the third one, then I'll show you the summary of the added cost. Okay?
One quick comment. I see it as an extra level of protection. When you have a situation at 2 o'clock in the morning and somebody's shot from a house or whatever, and you have to bring your TAC team out to deal with that person at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you have your car situated so they can see what's going on, knowing what they're going into, better prepares them for what they have to face. I think it's very cheap for what it provides for us.
Mr. Brown, I appreciate that. And if we have to cut something,
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, I'd hate for it to be that, but I have to understand. I listed it as low priority at the last meeting, but the more I learned about it, the more I felt it would be a benefit to us. So I have to stand here and try to defend it now.
I'd hate for you to be on the call and something very seriously happened. Boy, if we had had that, maybe so-and-so wouldn't have got shot. Maybe it would have been better.
Right now, if I had tasers,
Right. Yeah.
people won't be shot, but I can't pay twice the
I know
cost of a
it.
handgun for a
Yeah.
taser. I don't have the budget for it.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a comment about you saying that, you went back and found out more information. I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to do when we're considering an issue or considering spending money and you haven't made that decision yet? Don't you want to be able to go and collect what evidence or information that might be needed? And can it not change your mind as far as the priority goes? I don't see anything
Well,
wrong with
obviously
that.
it can, because I just feel bad about cost factor. I've always tried to be very conservative in what I've asked the board for. And unfortunately, I have to come back and replace a whole system. And there's better products out there than we've ever had before, and I'm sure there's better than this somewhere in the world, but just be glad I haven't found it.
All right. We talked about Patrol Scout. We've talked about additional body cameras. That's your $28,280. The remote access software is $38,409. The other topic we talked about at the last meeting was the replacement for MDTs. And again, there are 19 or 46% of these machines and their computers, they're 6 years old. And so what we had talked about doing was building in the upcoming budget a replacement schedule so we don't have to replace them all at one time. But if there was $40,000, we could begin the replacement now with 8 or 9 machines. If they break and we can't fix them, I guess Sheriff will be pulling them out of the vehicles, or?
Well, if they're not reliable, I'll have to, or if they're broken down, I'll have to. But because you have to pull them out for maintenance anyway, so. We're fortunate to be able to build back the Panasonic 29 and 30 tough books that we have now. That's the model numbers, and get the new software on them that the state police command that you run. So with that being said, they're working, but they're not going to work much longer. And this is, as far as the replacement plan for the computers, this is probably a very sensible way of going about it, so I don't have to come back up here and, well, me or someone else in the next 4 to 6 years saying, hey, we need all new mobile data terminals. We go ahead and start setting money aside now to do it. It will only save in the future. And everything won't come up at the same time at the last minute.
I think part of the problem with this, you have any type of computer that's 6 years old and rides around in vehicles, and some of the technology 6 years ago and the hardware wasn't what it is today. You don't know when they're going to go out, and they've patched and Velcroed and whatever they can do to them, but we really don't know how much longer they're going to last. That would be the point of starting the schedule now, so that when you can replace those you know are extremely unreliable. To do that for 8 or 9 machines would be around $40,000. So now to the summary. The added body cameras, the Patrol Scout, and the MDTs, if you did all of those, it would be $106,689. And if you go back to the original slide over here with your 242,450 and add it, that would be the total cost of everything we have talked about. So your 242,450, which you've already paid for and is funded, and the additional 28,280 for body cameras. If you want to do the Patrol Scout remote, 38,409. If you want to start the MDT replacements, 40, for an additional 106,689. Now, the summary of where we left off with our little chart of things that we funded from the unallocated balance. We started with 3.6 million, and again, the things with the red check marks are the things the board has already approved. So you have the school carry forward, the pay supplement for county employees, the fire and rescue capital, Board of Equalization funding, reimbursement to economic development, and the additional camera costs over and above what the jail credit was going to cover in the existing budget. That's 2.3 million. That gives you a balance of 1.4 million. The revenue sharing for roads, if you decide to take that from these funds, that's included at 450. The county carry forward request, and why that has a red asterisk next to it, is we were estimating if everyone asked for the 60% we allowed them to request, it would be roughly $750,000. The request came in and people requested a total, this is not approved yet, you've not seen it, but if you awarded everyone the amount they requested, it would be $325,000. So that's generated some additional dollars for allocation. And again, what I've added here at the bottom, the body cameras, Patrol Scout, and MDTs, if you choose to fund all of those, then your balance, your remaining balance at the end would be $478,595.
Questions, comments?
I just have a question about, well, okay, so let's say that you got all this stuff that we have listed here. Tell me about, like, do you guys have someone that comes in and trains people on how to use it? Like, and then do you have somebody, if something goes wrong, they can come fix it? And then do you have somebody, like if an upgrade comes along, like do they give automatic upgrades to this, or, you know?
If you'll remember, the board asked at the work session that we include 1 more year maintenance. So that would cover 2 years warranty and maintenance on the systems that we currently have above and beyond the factory maintenance of them. We would have to work out a maintenance contract agreement with them, because obviously it's technology, it's like any other technology, it's going to have its glitches.
Right.
And with that being said, it's an L3 product, they're on state contract for this system, so they probably are the only ones that can work on it. And
So-
we'll probably have to send it back to the factory with it.
Yeah, I just wondered how that worked, because that's the most frustrating thing when you
The
feel like,
The train situation, we have to provide them with a room with dry, heated, accessible workspace, and we will work, if this works out with the board, with Christian Clerk Fire Rescue, to use their bays so we could send them through one side and out the other side for the installation of the in-car cameras, and then obviously they'll do training on the in-car cameras as well as the body cams. 1.5 days worked in.
thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I can answer the money questions.
Oh, you,
We think you did.
Let me ask you a question. This may be completely out of line, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Do you have, or do you expect to have, any monies coming back to the sheriff's department that could help out on the payment of these things?
As far as asset forfeitures and things like that, it's not enough. Right now, there is one still pending in the federal courts that has been pending for over almost 3 years now. But if I said, yes, if I got that, it would pay for a third of this, or a quarter of this, then I would be supplanting. Because projects obviously being considered by the board, it's a possibility of be supplanting of funds if I were to put that toward it. Am I correct on that? Marty shakes his head yes tonight. But
And that was just a question I wanted to see where it went.
well, most of our asset forfeiture money, our drug asset forfeiture money, other than being able to replace all the handguns, have gone for meth lab cleanups and disposable hazardous material. That's where all that money's going. And also to buy the suits, the gloves, the mineral oil, all the stuff we have to clean up the dumped meth sites, or the ones we do search warrants and raids on. So there's no money in the enforcement of methamphetamine. No money in it at all, because no one has money.
Yeah, and I guess the other point of that is the sheriff is responsible for having those areas cleaned up. And if he doesn't use this money to do it, then he's going to have to come back here to request the funds in order to do the cleanup part.
I knew I was going to have some similar questions come up, so get it out there now.
It seems like we can't turn our head that we don't get another meth lab. I think we've had 4 in the last week. And they're doing it on culverts and underpasses, and just leaving all the byproducts behind. We can't walk away without that getting our watershed. So, I'd have spent $30,000 to get rid of the stuff that's already been through court, to pay WEL come up and haul off to a secure hazardous waste site. Do I enjoy paying that money for that? No, but it's at least keeping our community clean. And believe it or not, the inmate work crews that out here working, picking up litter, finding a lot of this stuff. And once they find it, we have to get it done. So we're some way creating our own problem.
I was talking to the jail staff, and they found one day 11 old meth cooks on the side of the road, where people had been cooking meth and just throw it out the window, and these inmates were coming up on it and finding.
And I only have 3 people assigned to that program, and they work virtually all the time.
That's one of the better programs we've ever had.
It is, until you run into discarded
Run into this, it's
med
not
bottles.
But at the same time, I think if somebody else is running into these meth bottles, by having somebody out looking for it, and then they know what they're looking at, and getting a hazmat team or deputies out there.
Okay, I think that concludes our presentation, and I would just ask the board, what do you want us to do from here? Do you want us to have on the next agenda resolutions for these 3 items? Do you want to deal with them tonight? How would you like for us to proceed?
If you want a resolution to be put on, I guess, whenever, we can't vote in closed session, but we can give consensus on...
Moving forward. On moving forward.
Yeah, on moving forward with the been added. And
And that would give Mr. Gabriel a chance too,
to come and vote on the resolution, I guess, that you had. And so if you want them to move forward and have a resolution, I guess, on at our next meeting, I guess, or and do that. We
Okay,
can,
would that be for all 3 items?
I would want to put all 3 items in, and you're talking about this and what Bill had said about having the access to those cars in a difficult situation where there was an active shooter potentially, and then you're suddenly giving the sheriff's staff a lot more eyes. And
Excuse me.
now I know I
Sorry.
picked at you a little bit, and I know that you said body cameras are the priority, but just the discussion that we've had tonight has been very helpful for me to get a better idea of why we need to spend these things. And so I appreciate the sheriff coming by, and I appreciate Chairman Brown's input as being in law enforcement for 30 plus years and being a chief as well. So thank y'all. But I would like to see it on the agenda, and
do we have
too.
a consensus? 1, 2, 3, 4. Move forward.
Okay, so the next agenda will have 1 resolution that appropriates the funds for all 3 items.
All 3 items, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Sheriff. Well, we're down to number 3, resolution, Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Mr. Chair, you have in your packets under new business a draft of a resolution that staff was asked to prepare concerning the Mountain Valley Pipeline project and the route that's proposed through Montgomery County. We're showing that under new business for you to have the opportunity to discuss it under work session and determine if you want to move forward under new business. I also know that there have been several other suggestions made to the content of the resolution, and the purpose of this work session is just to allow the board to discuss if you want to adopt such a resolution, and if so, how do you want it worded. So,
Chairman Brown, I'm one of the ones who asked for the alternative, and just so the folks know, in the alternative, it says, whereas if the Mountain Valley Pipeline were to reroute the proposed gas pipeline away from residential communities to areas that are unpopulated, not containing residences, the Board of Supervisors may reconsider opposing the construction of the pipeline. And my reasoning for that is, if FERC says, and I've been trying to do as much research on this as I possibly can to get a better idea. If FERC says that this pipeline is coming through, this pipeline is coming through.
Absolutely.
And if we close the door and say, well, we're not going to talk to you anymore, we don't want this pipeline, we're not going to talk to you anymore about it, I'm afraid that's a step that we shouldn't take. And so with this, if the pipeline company is willing to say, look, we're willing to avoid Brush Mountain Estates, Preston Forest, and maybe run it in a more rural section. And yeah, I read Dan Casey's article about running it in the National Forest. If this is a pipeline that's supposed to be great for our nation, perhaps the National Forest, maybe we can try to make this a win-win, as Mr. Casey had said. It says may. It doesn't say we will. It says we may consider it. And so, to me, that's the reason I asked the county attorney to prepare it, because I felt like it keeps the door open and allows for communication. And so that's why I was asking it to be part of it.
I would a whole lot rather see it as written and let them be the one that worries about offering a different area for it. I think you'll come much closer to getting one than you will if you just start laying down by the side of the road there.
Gary, if you talk to some of the folks who have said, we absolutely don't want a pipeline, we're not going to talk to you anymore, the pipeline goes through, they don't have any input on where that goes. And that's what I'm concerned about, that if we, I'm not saying we open the door, but if we at least say we're going to look out the peephole and find out what's there. And to extend this resolution, I think it says a lot of good things about the issues and concerns our citizens have, but I still want to have that opportunity to try to keep the communications open.
Well, I think that's the way not to have communications open myself, but that's just different from the way we're thinking of it.
I was saying if we look at the last part of the resolution where it says,
Which
Now-
one? Or you mean like the one?
the
where-
last paragraph,
Okay.
now therefore be it resolved,
The alternative resolution.
yeah, by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Montgomery, Virginia, that the Board of Supervisors hereby oppose the proposed road of the Mountain Valley Gas Pipeline that is included in Mountain Valley Pipeline LLC's pre-filing request, docket number PF 15-3-00 with FERC, because of the proposed route's adverse impacts on developed residences in the Brush Mountain Estates, Preston Forest subdivisions within the proposed corridor, and on the scenic, recreational, and sensitive environmental areas in Montgomery County, and that these adverse impacts to the County of Montgomery far outweigh any economic benefit the county might receive from the construction pipeline. And then it goes on to talk about, be it further resolved with more than one pipeline coming from the same place and ending up in the same place. And then lastly, to direct the county administrator to transmit this resolution to FERC for inclusion in pre-filing. So that says just about what we all know and think about with the current pipeline proposal. Whereas what Chris put in does say that it may reconsider opposing the construction of the pipeline, which means if it goes through some other place that we think is highly inappropriate, then we can oppose that too. That's what it's really saying. It's not saying that we have another line, another area that we want it to. It's not like we're saying, okay, go back and put it in Floyd. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that the words that are in there that say may reconsider may give us an opening to work with FERC. That's how I see it. But it says specifically, we do not want, we are opposed to that line going through where they have currently proposed it. It's totally without any fact that makes no common sense to me, even if it made sense to them. And so I think that we are asking them that if they want that they may get our approval if only they take it out of where they're talking about. Because they're not looking at safety or property damages or anything else. They're just looking at, well, here's where the pipeline goes. I don't know that I would approve putting it in somebody else's backyard either. But that to me gives us a little bit more credibility to talk with the individuals about the thing, that we're not going to say a word to them anymore.
Well, but the problem is that they are already making the move to let you talk about it.
Well, they're
Yeah,
right.
speaking of
I
Mike,
can't hear you.
can't hear you.
I heard him, but that's,
I said, but they have give us an opening saying they want to talk. So why do we want to jump in and mess up something that is laying there in our hand?
Well,
go ahead, Chris.
I know that they said that they wanted to meet with us again, and I'm in favor of, I'm not afraid of a meeting. I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, I'm worried that if we pass this resolution and they change their mind and say, well, there's no need to meet with y'all. Y'all have made up your mind. I'd like to at least have, in my mind, saying we're willing to keep the door open. Because if I read the FERC guidelines correctly, I promised Marty I wouldn't practice local government law 3 years ago when I got elected, but when I'm trying to read FERC, it's very confusing. But as I understand it, they're supposed to avoid national forests and things like that. And so what if they did run it in the national forest and avoided Preston Forest? They might need our support when they go in front of FERC. And if they were to do something like that, that would be very controversial. Well, there would be a lot of folks that would be opposing that as well. But if they run it through that national forest, I don't have as many people worry about people losing their well water or being trapped in a neighborhood where they don't feel like that they can get out if there's an emergency. And so that's everything else is the exact same. The only thing I'm saying is put in that one whereas.
Yeah, I just got one thing. I'm with Chris. I think, if we don't put something in there, now, believe me, I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak for the rest of them. I'm against any pipeline coming through somebody's property, their home, anything. I'm against that. But if we shut the door and FERC, they go to FERC and they say, well, look, they don't want to talk to us, we're going to do it anyway. At least if we have a door with a crack open, we can try to negotiate with them. I mean, we can't, and I know it's hard for us because we've been discussing it and we've been trying to do everything we can to help Montgomery County as a whole. We think about this all the time. We really do, honestly. And I apologize to you that there's nothing I can do personally to stop it from messing up your home. I understand how you feel about it. I feel the same. But I'm with Chris. I think we need this change in here so we can at least have a crack in the door.
I just have I think I'm confused, okay. We have we have a resolution that's under new business. Then in this packet, we have the alternative that Chris is proposing. Then there's this other thing in there that says modified 5 hours ago. What's that?
That's the one that's in your agenda.
Okay, so that's the same one, okay. And did both of those end up addressing the problem that we received the email about the other residences on Brush Mountain?
Yes. The reason the one on the agenda was amended was to put Brush Mountain
Okay.
on there.
Brush Mountain
And
Estates.
that's also on the one Chris.
Okay, now I'm
later
understanding you a little bit better. Okay, my take on it is that while I understand what Chris and Todd are trying to say, I guess the original resolution, I felt like, made the point of saying why we were against the proposed route and gave the reasons that I felt like we all had discussed as being the reasons, as really serious reasons. The terrain, the karst terrain, the the public safety aspect of it, the mine shafts underneath, the forested area, the residences. I thought, to me, it's just basically saying, we're standing up for our citizens, and we're just saying this just is not an appropriate place for such a big project to go through because of A, B, C, D, whatever it is. I thought that resolution as it stood was well written. Now, the pipeline people, they deal with this stuff all the time. I mean, we went to VACO, and every county that's been impacted by a pipeline is also talking about this. It's all over Virginia, not just here, as people well know. So they know that we have to stand up for our citizens, but they also know, like let's say for instance, that they're looking at this whole thing and they've heard all the input and they're here tonight and they're listening and they're going, well, okay, they don't want it there. Maybe we could work on something. It's not closing the door. This is a public meeting. We're all here. They've asked to meet with us. I mean, I don't see how it closes the door by passing the resolution as we proposed it. We're just trying to make a statement in support of our citizens based on all that we know. And so I feel good about the original resolution, although I respect what Todd and Chris are trying to say. I mean, I don't want to close a door, but I also want it made clear how I feel about what's happened. And I'm very passionate about the way I feel about it going through somebody's neighborhood. And I think I said that from the beginning. I just don't feel that that's the proper thing to do when so much is at stake. And we're talking about property, we're talking about lives, public safety, everything. Groundwater. I mean, everything. So that's where I'm coming from. And I like the way the resolution stated because it makes it clear.
Yes, and I agree with you, Ms. Biggs. It makes it very clear that we don't want to where it is because of what it does to our community and to our county. I think whether or not we close the door on it is up to us, period, because it doesn't really, it irritates me to no end that FERC can say, okay, just go right on through. It doesn't matter if it goes through somebody's neighborhood. Just as the story was told to us about the people in, what was it, Lynchburg?
Appomattox.
Appomattox, when they had a huge explosion there about the older lady and grandchildren, children were actually trying to get out of the place and were burned on the backside from running from their homes rather than being killed by the total explosion. It does not suit me to talk about all of the setbacks. It doesn't do anything to it. It doesn't appeal to me to talk about the water wells and that kind of thing because we know it's going to damage people. You can't do it, and you don't know what's going to happen on a pipeline. It's just there. So I would never be in favor of taking any of the things out of the resolution that we have. But I'm still concerned that if we get to a situation, and I'm afraid it's coming because the people just, the people want to put it in, and we're saying, no, we don't want it. It's just that simple. I think the resolution is there for us to say, okay, here's how we feel. We want to be open with you. We want to talk with you. One of the things that I said to the first people that I met with, and Mr. Brown, you were there, I said, look, when you come to talk to the people in our community, number one, you better be straightforward. And number two, you better tell the truth. Now, those of you who were in that meeting, and I've heard from a number of you, I get the sense that you don't think they did that at all. So I think there are a lot of things that we can meet with the groups and decide whether we like what they're saying or not. We'll have opportunities to do that. If they don't meet with us, then it really will be, a sad thing. But I can't say that in the beginning I really supported adding another paragraph there. But at the same time, I don't want to tie our administrators' hands or our hands to be able to affect where the line goes. That's the thing that scares me most.
I don't think you tie our administrator's hands. I think you kill him if you really, as far as trying to come up with something that everybody's going to like, and that we're going to start chipping away and having a hole here and a hole there, and suddenly anything we say has no credence. It's just that bunch up there has not got enough sense to stand up and talk to Frick. That's the feel I get from it. If we go to trying to swap off a resolution in which we've got a real good worded resolution that we charged our officials to come up with, and they came up with it. Now, before we can put it in the mail, it's switched, and I don't like that at all.
Well, Mr. Chairman, can I ask
Yes,
one question
sure.
of the two folks? Are you saying that if the company came back to you and said, we were willing to talk about rerouting this out of the Brush Mountain and Preston Forest and put it more, are you willing to reconsider your decision? That's all this provision is saying, is if they came back to us and said, at least that everything is the same. And the only thing is, it says, whereas if the Mountain Valley Pipeline were to reroute the proposed gas pipeline away from residential communities to areas that are unpopulated, which hits what Todd's talking about, not people losing their houses, not containing residences, the Board of Supervisors may reconsider the construction of the pipeline. It's not saying we will, it's not saying shall, it's saying, hey, look. And to me, if they came to us today and said, we're willing to talk about this, would I reconsider it? And knowing how many people's dream houses are out there, and knowing how that there's a reason why it's called Coal Bank Holler is because there used to be a lot of coal mines. So that's what I'm saying. Everything else is the exact same. There's no, I didn't ask for any other changes other than that. And so that's just where I'm at.
Any other?
Just one more thing. I want to make it perfectly clear that I am against the pipeline coming through anybody's neighborhood. I am against it. But, like I said, I don't want it to destroy nobody's dream home. I mean, that's my goal, is to stop that.
I don't want to destroy anybody's home, whether it's a dream home or whether it's a little ranch house somewhere sitting by itself. I don't care.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But it's going to come. I mean, we can't stop it. But if it's got to come, we get it away from the residents, out of the unpopulated area.
We keep saying it's going to come, but we had some light just 2 weeks ago. They pulled out of Floyd, didn't they? They were saying it was going to come. It was going to come, but they fought it, and look what happened.
Well, when we was in Blacksburg, Chair Brown asked them about the permits they need, and he asked them, sitting there, if we don't give you a permit, what are you going to do? They're going to send somebody from Richmond and make us sign it. I mean, I'm not saying giving up. I'm not asking nobody to give up on this fight. I promise you that. But if we can't stop it, we need to get it out of your residential area. That's all I'm saying.
But it sounds to me like a fighter that we don't want to fight. Yeah, we'll put you in the ring, but we're gonna give up before we get started.
I had to give up on nothing.
But Gary, they took it out of Floyd, but look where they put it.
Yep.
And if we want it, we don't want it to go in some other county in the middle of their homes.
No?
Okay, so we wouldn't be fighting all this if it was in Floyd. Yes, they fought it, but they put it in a worse spot right here in our own county, and where people's homes are going to be destroyed.
So it's
I understand why we don't necessarily need to put this in. And usually when you do a resolution, you really do it with one thing in mind. You give your reasons and then you say, now therefore be it resolved. And we don't want it. But I'm not going to support putting it into somebody else's backyard that might go through their homes. I mean, that's not winning anything.
But if we talk to people who won't give us the correct answer or a answer that is anywhere close to being a solid thing that we can get behind, how are we to know what it is until they sit down with us and start telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
But, Gary, I wasn't happy with the answers that they were giving me. I tried to figure out 8 different ways to ask questions, and I was very disappointed with how prepared they were. In my mind, they weren't very well prepared.
They weren't.
And, but like I said, in my mind, if we want to be a part of the process. Now, I know there's a greater debate out there about a lot of different things about fracking and all that, but I'm just worried right now because my job is to look out for the citizens first of District B, but then of the rest of the county. And I frankly, I haven't had a single email on this from anybody in my district. I've had one speaker, but I feel strongly about it because I know it's affecting Montgomery County. I know it could affect our tax base. And so if I can somehow work with, and if I really believe that we could do something here and pass a resolution and they could put the pipeline through, hey, I'm willing to look at that and do that.
But that doesn't guarantee.
But the reality is this is a FERC decision, and if we're going to be a part of this, we might be able to move this line a little bit further down the road. And that's why I want to talk with them. And now they still got to justify everything in front of FERC, and they've still got to prove the need of it. But I'm worried that this thing is coming through. And if I can protect some of the nets in your district, I want to do it. So I will say more.
Well, I guess it's up to me now. The first thing that I want to say is I want to commend my fellow board members on how seriously that they have taken this issue. I mean, we've conversed back and forth and so forth, and they see it as an entire Montgomery County party. Like, for example, and it doesn't affect District B, and so you could take it or leave it, but it's almost like it's 7 chambers of a heart, and for this heart to function properly, all chambers have to be working together. Right. And this group has been working together. Yes, we have a little bit of difference of opinions. We spent 3 days up at the homestead at the VACO conference. Among us, the conference dealt with counties dealing with pipelines, and we wanted to talk people from Nelson County, Augusta County, the person that was the volunteer fire chief when the explosion happened in Appomattox. We sat there and he was explaining what had happened. No, nobody was killed, but it was a lady in a house and her grandchild, I believe, and it got so hot in the house they ran out the back door, and the flames from the heat burnt the box.
Just from the heat?
Yeah, from the heat. And once they got away from it, the home blew up. Right. So to speak. And when you look at that, and I praise my fellow board members at our meeting last Wednesday night, They didn't roll over and play dead. They didn't roll over and play dead because I take it is that we are the first defense for our constituents.
Absolutely.
We don't have any statutory. We don't have any statutory power to block it, to tell them to go elsewhere, to do anything. But we're in the fight with you guys.
Right.
Okay, we're leading the way. Just don't get too far back behind us as we lead the way. I've heard a couple things up here today, and I've looked at the resolution. I've looked at it paragraph by paragraph, and I'm sitting like, man. And it depends on who we talk to at VACO. We talked to Franklin County officials. I think they wanted to come in and go down 58 or something like that. And they were looking, they figured it was coming anyway, so they were looking, according to the supervisors that we talked to try to get something out of it for their county and try to encourage them to take it around 221.
220, yeah.
220. And to put in a tap for some property they're going to develop and things like this. And it's two things. We either oppose a pipeline in the county, period, or we oppose the current proposed route. Now, I'm all against the current proposed route.
And that's what the resolution is.
But when you look at it, if they want to go 2 miles up in George Washington Forest or somewhere up in there, that's far enough away that it doesn't bother people. The paragraph that was added, whereas if Mountain Valley were to reroute the proposed gas line away from residential communities to areas that are unpopulated, not containing residents, the Board of Supervisors may consider opposing the construction of the pipeline. The thing about it like this, it's just like a fly and an elephant. FERC is the elephant, and we are the fly. And every way, shape, or form, we think about how we can sort of make it difficult on the people that FERC give them the permit, like issuing zoning permits or building permits and things like this. And he says, well, yeah, what if we deny it? Well, somebody a little bit higher than us will come in and direct us to do what we need to do. But I like the paragraph that's added. I think the resolution says what we needed to say. And but the revised resolution, I support that paragraph being added. But we're in this thing together. We're going to stand up for you. We're going to continue to ask the tough questions, and we're going to do whatever we can do with what little means we have in trying to protect your property, protect your homes, protect our environment, and all of that. And I say thank you, board members. We're just getting started on a very, very difficult issue, and the seriousness and the manner in which you have taken us, and the many calls and chats that we had among ourselves and things like this, and it let me know that, me being your chair, I was very, very proud that we didn't have a lot of controversy within the board, like, well, it might bring jobs. Well, we didn't really care about jobs. We didn't care. All we cared about was our citizens' homes and things that they have put their blood and sweat and money into. And some are, I've talked to a couple here that were in their mid-70s that lived in Preston Forest and basically said, we're just too old to start over again. And young people who have a lot invested, they just, don't want to start over again. So I've spoken, and I support the revised resolution, and you guys can comment one way or the other.
Well, the revised resolution doesn't mean that I back off from anything.
That's
I've
right.
lived too
That's
long
right.
and fought too many battles. Steve knows that sitting out there, I'm not going to back off. I just want to be sure that there is
That clear understanding.
that clear understanding that some of you don't know me, but those of you who do know me know that I don't give up easily. And I'm not about to give up on this situation. But I do think that the paragraph says some good things. And again, just like Mr. Brown, I want to say that I really appreciate what our staff did to put this together, because we know what will happen to our communities if that line goes through where it is. It just can't do it. That's just all there is to it. It just can't go there.
That's right.
And so we're going to keep on doing. Everybody here is going to keep on saying it can't go there. And if there's no talking and no resolution, we can certainly make a little trip up the road and tell FERC, it just can't go there. Do you know what you're doing? And I think maybe after all the pipeline people heard you all the other night and heard the questions we had, maybe that's why they really want to talk to us, because they may have pre-filed, but they know that there's a great deal of opposition out there, and that you all said to them loudly and clearly, it can't go there. And we're going to have to see what we can do to, if it's going to have to go there, if it's going to have to be here in Virginia, which we don't want it to be, but if they say it's got to be, then we're going to fight to get it to the right place. And so, anyway, thank you, Mr. Brown, and I appreciate it.
I have a question. I mean, maybe it's just me, but, okay, I understand why this yellow part's in here, but I thought the original resolution just said that we aren't supporting the proposed route. Isn't that what it said? Isn't that what we've been saying? So why, I guess I'm still not understanding why we have to put that other thing in there. We're just simply saying we're against the proposed route. We're not talking about anything else but the proposed route and why we're against it, right?
It tells, what I'm saying is the reasons are in the whereases why
Right.
we oppose it. And when I guess I must have read this thing, 100 times and trying to look through it to make sure that it covered the things that was brought to our attention, the things that we had talked about and things like this. And I keep looking and taking the whereas apart and doing all this with it, see was it anything that we needed to add it or whatever. But the resolution, the whole original resolution is the same except that last whereas that was put in. So it says everything that these 3 lines here has been added to the original. It didn't change anything else.
It didn't change anything.
Yeah, it didn't change
So
anything.
why do we want to put it in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand why is it in there. I mean, of course, why can't we talk about it going somewhere else without putting this in? I guess I'm just really confused about why this is in here. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's, when you were at VACO, how many counties were successful and said that they blocked power lines and or gas transmission lines?
When we were at VACO, all the counties we talked to that were having, or at least ones I did, these pipelines were going through they weren't going for a residential development, number one, but number two, the one county that was concerned like we are with the cars to rain was Augusta County, and they were so concerned that their board of supervisors went to Washington to FERC, sat with them, explained the situation, and met with Senator Warner and
But Mary,
Senator
my question
Kane's
was,
staff.
how many have in the past been successful in blocking FERC?
No, nobody's going to be successful if that's where they want it to go.
But if we can try, and what this part of it is to say, hey, look, let's see if we can get it shifted and get it away from residents. Because if we just say, this is the way it's going to be, we don't want a pipeline, period. We may get the pipeline.
But that's not what this says. This says to me we're against the proposed route. It doesn't say we're against the pipeline. That's what I'm having trouble with.
Well, I don't believe that that one paragraph says, it says, look, if you'll consider changing that route, we'll consider changing our proposal. We'll consider changing things. It doesn't say we will, it says we'll consider it.
It's a may, it's not a shall.
And so to me,
I just don't.
that's where it's at. It's saying, you know, and maybe I don't get it, but to me, it is plain and it is simple. It's saying, if you'll change this route, if you'll protect some of our citizens, if you'll make them safe and put it through the national forest, hey, look, we'll talk with you. And it won't be, instead of 50 landowners, it'll be 5 landowners. And hopefully maybe even, or fewer. When you look at the GIS and you start talking about the larger tracts of land that are out in that northeastern part of the district, you're talking about a lot fewer people. You're talking about agricultural land. You're talking about woods. Yes, there are some dangers there. But to me, if we can look at it, and that's why I proposed it, because you start looking at folks who they just said, we're going to oppose it, we're going to oppose it, we're going to oppose it. They don't, on the local level, aren't successful. At least not, I haven't heard. I mean, there may be some great stories about how people have been more successful. But if they are able to show that there is a need, and you've got all the gas in West Virginia, and it's coming down this way, I'm just worried about it. I'm with you as far as I don't want to see it go through this community. I'm just trying to look at different ways to do it and get it out of there.
So I guess now I need to ask Ms. Perkins, so it's basically your district and Mr. Creed's that it's going through. So are you supporting that we keep the yellow part in there from Mr. Tuck, Ms. Perkins, and then Mr. Creed? Or, I mean, personally, I don't like it, but it's going through your district, so I guess I need to know what you're saying.
Well, I think I've said enough. I've been saying it all evening.
So you want it in there?
I think I support what Mr. Brown said, yes, and what Mr. Tuck said, because I don't think it changes anything. It just maybe gives us a little more leeway to negotiate with those people, knowing that we're going to have the pipeline. I see exactly what you're saying, and at first I really thought about that same thing, but knowing that we didn't change anything that's in there, but that it may give us a little bit more opportunity to negotiate, to get it out of there. I know we can do it without a resolution. We don't have to have that in there, but it is, I think, a good thing. I agree with Mr. Brown. And I know it does go through Mr. Creed's territory too, but in Montgomery County proper, or on our side of the river, the bulk of it goes right through the district that I represent, and then goes on and is picked up by Mr. Creed's.
Let me say a couple things. We know where they're proposing to have it in Blacksburg. We don't know where they're proposing to have it in Elliston. We don't know where they're going to have it in Bradshaw. We don't know anything from the time it leaves Blacksburg. But if you for 1 minute think that our senators, any of our legislators are going to look at condemned property after condemned property after condemned property and say, hey, we're gonna have a party over this when they know elections are coming up and coming up and coming up.
I
You better
understand.
think again, every one of you better think again, because that's not how they work.
Well, I know that. I've been, like I said, I've been living a long time here. And I fought very strongly to keep that intermodal out of Elliston. I mean, and I'm down there now in Roanoke at the MPO that's down there that represents your district. And again, they've got a little draft proposal of what they want to do, and what do they use as the example? Elliston. I said, no, I don't think that's where you're going.
Oh, yeah, and they throwing money after it, hand over fist.
Oh, yeah. Well, it can be done here too, just as well. But what I'm saying is adding this paragraph that others want in it is not going to change our minds at all. It just does give you a little more leeway to talk with the people about it, rather than saying, I'm not going to talk to you.
I agree with you. It's gonna give them time and energy to talk about it. They're gonna say, hey, we won the first round without even getting out of the car.
I don't know
So
how
that-
you can say that, Gary.
Well, I think
Because they sent something in saying they want to meet. So obviously they want to meet.
Well, they
And
want
we
to
should
meet.
we should honor that.
Well, we are going to. I don't mind talking with anybody about it. That's not where I am. But,
And you'll get the same I don't know as you got the other night.
well, we
You're
might,
right.
Gary, you're very right. I mean, I was very disappointed, just like Craig was, just like Chris was. Yeah, I was very disappointed in that meeting. But I can't tell you that when the first thing I'm going to say to them when we talk is, why weren't you more prepared? And number two, you obviously didn't listen to me when I told you to tell the truth. Now, what would you like to talk about?
But in their mind, they were prepared. They did exactly what the Home Office told them to do. You go down and tell them nothing.
They weren't prepared to answer a question.
they might have been prepared, but they didn't expect a bunch of tigers like we were.
I don't think they were too scared of us, Tony.
Yeah.
I
really
think
don't.
they were unhappy.
I don't think that's a fair question,
Me
Mr.
either.
Craig.
That's right. But they did say that it was unfair. I'm not gonna get on the opposite side of Mr. Creed. We're all talking about the same thing. We're talking about the fact
I'm kidding.
that we,
Yeah. And I heard his comments that it's, it's your district. Well, it's our county,
Absolutely,
And so we
absolutely.
take it just as, you could put your head in the sand in District B and says, whatever y'all want to do, if it comes through, fine. I'm in District E and say, well, it's not going to affect me. But we've partnership and sort of took ownership of this thing as a board. And so that's the good thing about it, is that we can agree to disagree, but we're still a team when we leave from this meeting. Our common goal is to take care of our constituents. That's fair enough.
fair to me.
If we want to do a thumbs up in work session to see, can we move forward with passing this resolution, the revised form, and if we get a thumbs up in work session, like we get consensus, then if you want to do some more discussion, I'm open to do whatever the board's wishes is. If we're through discussing it, we want to move forward, and if we can have a consensus on the revised one. If it fails, we can go back to the other one, if that's how you want to proceed, if that's what the consensus of the board is.
Well, I agree, but at this point in time, I really hate to see our board split on something like this, because we have been all together in opposing this proposed route and trying to understand why in the world anybody with good common sense would want to put a pipeline through somebody's home. And we have been, as a board, we've been very solid on that part, and I really hate to see that we might split on something like this, but we're going to meet again in a week and a half. We're going to meet with the people from the companies, and who knows what might happen. I just want us to have something serious in writing as a resolution that says we don't want it where it is, and here are other reasons why we don't want it where it is. And I don't think that anything that we have here destroys that. So, up to you.
I think when FERC come, and it might be a year or so from now, but they will come and do like an open house or something.
They will come and ask us.
And ask questions and things like this. But, I mean, I think we had about 1,000 people on Wednesday night, and it was a number of people who emailed us because of their disabilities couldn't make it. But if we do find out when FERC's coming, if we could turn out 3,000 or 4,000 people, that would convey a message to FERC, and it might not change their minds, but it would sure convey a message.
Well, we've asked
Yeah.
the administrator on the very last
Yeah.
paragraph to
But
send this to FERC, to
you know
put
what?
it on record.
The people that we've talked to, they don't have any authority to say we can do this, that, or the other. None. Zero. Zilch.
But they may have gone back to the big guys who do. And gotten you.
They can do that, but, you know,
We don't know. We don't
I'd
know.
like to see them come in with the big guys and say, sit down and let's see what we're really looking at.
Well, we're going to.
No, they
Okay,
go send
you're
the
good.
same road.
Let's see, hit thumbs up on the revise, that's 3, this one is 4.
I mean, I'd
Yeah.
be willing to do this. I mean, I know this
Yeah.
is really stupid
Yeah.
as far as maybe perception-wise, but my gut is so strongly invested in the original resolution that I don't mind moving it and having a vote on it. And if it's voted down and the other one is put on the floor, then I will support it just to get something out there to make sure that we all have the understanding that we're in it together, because I know we have to be in it together, but
Mary, that's not a very good.
well, it might not be good, Annette, but I just feel very strongly about it. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay.
Everybody has an opinion.
I mean, usually I'm not stubborn like this, but for some reason, this thing is just, it's gotten a hold of me from the very get-go, and I just feel the original resolution
Well-
said everything I wanted it to say and everything I felt people were trying to say. So
I
that,
can vote for that one too.
Hey, this
And I
one,
don't have any problems with it.
This one
If you're gonna
says-
do that,
Okay, yeah.
then I can put thumbs up on that one. That's not gonna bother me at all. But I want everybody to know that it does not prevent us from negotiating with these people. I can vote for that. If you want to put the first resolution on the floor because you feel so stubborn about it, because you feel so passionate about it, I don't think you feel any more passionate about it than any of us on this board feels about where that pipeline is going. It's all right with me, because I can vote for that too. But I prefer the alternate, because I think that that's what sets the tone for us. And I think it's the right thing to do. But I'm not going to continue to do anything that continues to separate the board. Because the original resolution has everything in it that this one has, and I support it 100%. But I also support this one 100%. So,
it hurts.
does that make 200? Whatever.
no, I'll try to wear stripes next time to
Yes.
be the
Get you
referee.
a whistle and stuff.
Yeah, and a whistle. Any other comments? And that was 4 consent, in consensus for the alternative one.
Right. But
and,
I can vote for the first one if she puts it out there.
Is it anything that would prevent us from going out of work session at this time?
Yeah,
There is.
yeah, I'm tired.
Okay. If we want to conclude work session, I need a motion to.
So moved.
So second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Now, may we have a very short recess?
Yes, ma'am. Don't have to go no further. We'll take a recess. We're going to take about 7-8 minutes and then we'll reconvene.
No problem.
I don't think we have to vote on it tonight, and I'll be stubborn about that.
I think the next item
Vote on it tonight.
on our agenda is the addendum. And do we have an addendum, Mr. Meadows?
Sir, we did not add
We
anything
do
this
not.
evening.
Okay,
Consent agenda.
where are we here?
Move to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
I'm gonna talk to you when this is over.
Ms. Perkins?
Ms. Perkins?
What? What am I
The consent
supposed to say?
agenda.
Consent agenda.
I'm still on the pipeline.
I know you are, but we are on the consent agenda.
Okay, if you're on the consent agenda, I'll be on it, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
New business. Subject, resolution in opposition of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Resolution of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Montgomery opposing the Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Or the route that it's going through, correct?
Well, I was just reading the bold print there.
Okay, okay. And this is the original one that's on,
I was going to move to approve the amended resolution. Make that motion.
Well, she's already approved it.
Oh,
Well,
did you already make a motion?
well, I was trying to make a motion to put the original one on the floor. But I would need a second for that. So that, and if that doesn't happen, that's fine. But I just have to put it on the floor for my own personal satisfaction. If there's no second, it dies for lack of a second, Mr. Chair.
Well, some of the people might be thinking about it, so it dies, I guess.
No, if there's no support for it, I'm not going.
Yeah, it dies.
Okay.
What, the original resolution?
Yeah, the original.
Yeah.
The original.
Yeah,
You're not gonna support it?
Not if there's no support for it.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Now, the,
I guess I would make a motion for the amended resolution, and when I make the motion, I understand that I'm making the best decisions. I understand that Mary's trying to make the best decisions. I understand Gary's trying to make the best decisions in a very complex situation that when we, and so like I said, I'm just trying to make the best informed decision I can, and that's why I asked for that amendment, and I hope I'm right.
you've made a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Do you want to say anything? Or-
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say
Do we
something.
feel that
Go ahead.
it's absolutely essential that we vote on this pipeline resolution tonight?
Well,
We can just discuss it.
you can discuss it, but our residents have been waiting for some action on the part of this board. And even, I think they came October the 14th, and we had, some came on the 27th, and then we had our meeting on last Wednesday. I know the wheels of government turn slowly,
Yes, they do.
and I think they would want to see this board take some action tonight instead of waiting 2 weeks,
Well, it's a week and a half, but
Yeah.
that's okay. I want to say this. I talked to a number of people up here. I think you know where I'm coming from, and I know where you're coming from. I don't see it exactly the way that the people I talked to, although I appreciate everything you said, because I know it's coming from your heart. I know it's coming from your head, and I know how vested you are in it. So I appreciate it. I think we all have a right to express our own opinion, and that's how we reach a conclusion. We do what we think is right at the time. And so when I support this alternate resolution, I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do, but I also understand members of our board and people in the audience. I understood what you said to me when you came up here. I know that what you're doing is seeing it too from the way you're invested in it, and I am very vested in it, will continue to be so. But I hope you will give me the good measure that I give to the rest of my board, to Ms. Biggs, to everybody who has an opinion, to say that I appreciate their opinions, and I appreciate the fact that they feel strongly about it, and I feel that way about what the other people, the negatives on this particular thing have to say. So with that, I will vote to support this alternate resolution, and I don't do it lightly, but that is what I will do. Thank you.
Any others? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Ms. Biggs,
All right, so I want this part of the record. I'm going to vote aye because I want to stand with my fellow board members and with the concerns that we have that are stated in the rest of the resolution, besides the part that I personally didn't want in there. But I want to stand with the rest of my board so that people understand that we are supporting them. So I think it's better for me to stand together with them, since I would just be out there by myself the other way. So I will vote aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
Mr. Tuck,
Aye.
Mr. Creed,
Absolutely no.
Chair Brown,
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, let me see where we at now.
Let's see.
Are we doing EDA next?
No, it's, well, you know how these iPads are, they sort of drift off by themselves. Oh, subject B, resolution approving the Governor's Development Opportunity Fund Performance Agreement, Wolverine Advanced Materials.
So moved.
Thanks.
Have a motion, a second, any discussion?
I'd just like to thank the staff for all the hard work they did to get this to where we need to be, and this is really going to be a boost for our economy, and it's going to assure that this company stays in our area for many years to come and provides jobs and a good tax base. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Ms. Perkins?
Yeah.
Yes. Aye, whatever it takes.
Mr. Tuck,
Aye.
Mr. Creed, Mr. King,
Aye.
Chair Brown,
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay, now we open up the, next item on the agenda is public addresses. This is an opportunity where, well, I already have 5 people signed up, but 3 people. But this is a time that anybody in the audience can address the board. You have 5 minutes and address all your comments to the board. And there's a timer up there. When you hear it, you'll get a little yellow light that gets you close. You have 1 minute left, and when the beep goes off, your time is up. And the first person we have signed up to speak is Angela Stanton.
Well, I had a very different, Angela Stanton, 2595 Spalding Road, Christiansburg. I had something very different I was going to say originally before all of this discussion. I do understand that you all are operating in good faith. I really do. I'm not trying to be critical. I just feel like the resolution that you just approved sort of muddled your message. You had a great message. I'm a marketing person, so messaging is part of marketing. And I feel like you muddled the message at the end by, I know you want to engage them in conversation, but unfortunately, I think you also know you're not necessarily dealing with the most ethical of actors based on the meeting that we had last week. They couldn't answer questions that it scares me to know that a company that supposedly is in the infrastructure business couldn't answer. They said your questions were unfair. Your questions were spot on. They were the questions that needed to be asked, and unfortunately they didn't answer. I had a completely different thing I wanted to say tonight, and I feel I kind of lost what I was able to say, but I really wished that you had gone with the original resolution because I don't think it would have closed the door. It simply stated you oppose that proposed route, and I don't think that, again, I don't think that would have closed the door. If they wanted to talk to you about some other routes, they certainly could do that. They, again, I'm not for putting it in anybody's backyard personally, but I just unfortunately feel like the message was muddled. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Tom Hoffman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I fully understand. My name is Tom Hoffman. I live in Harrisburg. And don't get me wrong on the thing here, because I fully understand how people in Preston Forest feel, or people that are in other populated areas that are concerned about their homes and their property and all of that. But I've got news for you. We don't want a national forest either. And the National Forest is a protected area. It's protected by the federal government, or it's supposed to be anyway. And people come to the National Forest that come from all over. They come from other parts of this state. They come from other states. They come to fish or to hunt or to hike, like the Appalachian Trail. They come to hike, and that brings money into the county, and it brings money into Giles County. And do you think anybody's going to say, hey, let's go down to Montgomery County and see their nice new pipeline? And that's ridiculous, and it can cause all sorts of problems anyway, even if it's not in anyone's backyard. For one thing, a lot of our drinking water comes down out of there. And the streams and rivers that come down out of there, it's drinking water. And for wildfire that got started up there, has anybody ever seen on TV what happens when wildfires start in Southern California? They'll start off out in the woods somewhere, and then they'll get right down into a subdivision and burn the subdivision down. And that could happen also. And I just want to say the National Forest is not a trash heap where we throw stuff we don't want. I don't care whether it's a road or a power line or a pipeline or what. And I'll say one more thing, and that's at the meeting last week, one of you gentlemen or ladies asked, well, why couldn't we run it along an interstate highway? And the guy answered sort of non-conclusively. He said, well, I don't know. Well, why couldn't we? Well, why couldn't it be built there? You've got a wide right-of-way up that's already there, and it wouldn't be any different from putting in an extra lane like they want to do on I-81. They want to put in and make it 4-lane the whole way. That may be a pain while they were doing it, but at least it wouldn't be cutting through the woods, and it wouldn't be cutting through anyone's property. You've got the median strip, and you got a certain amount of land on each side that's already owned by the state that's in public ownership. So it seems to me that it could be there, and don't say because it's too dangerous to the public, because it's going to be dangerous to the public no matter where you build it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Max Macon.
Good evening, Chairman Brown and rest of the board and Mr. Meadows. My name is Max Macon. On behalf of the Mountain Valley Pipeline LLC and both of our partner companies, I want to thank you for the opportunity to say a few words tonight and for your invitation to participate in the public forum last Wednesday night. For the benefit of the board and citizens of the county, I want to reiterate that we are in the early stages of the route planning for the pipeline, and the route will not be finalized until we have conducted the on-the-ground surveys along the proposed route. As we mentioned at the forum, these surveys are necessary to evaluate topographical, environmental, historical, and cultural features of the land. Additionally, our evaluation will consider all information and concerns shared by the board and the citizens of Montgomery County. In summary, the planning and development of a pipeline route is a long and rigorous process that involves extensive environmental review to determine a route that has the least overall impact to the environment, landowners, and residents. We have not yet commenced this important survey work of the proposed route in Montgomery County, and we are committed to work with the county and its residents to gather information and identify issues throughout this process. In fact, there is much more information to be learned by all stakeholders, including the MVP project team, various regulatory authorities, the board, and the community members throughout Montgomery County. We want to impress upon you that we genuinely value the feedback from the community and every community along the proposed route. We look forward to continuing this dialogue and encourage you to stay in close communication with our project team if you have any questions, concerns, or feedback to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the citizens that we have signed up, but we will open it up to people in the audience who hadn't signed up to give them 5 minutes. Sir, come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Will Stanton. I live at 259 Fowler Spalding Road in Christiansburg. All due respect to the person from the Mountain Valley Pipeline Company, the performance the other night by representatives was appalling. People asked questions. You guys asked some outstanding questions. One question was very simply stated in terms of what would the pressure on the pipeline be, and the representatives had no answer. They were asked as well how many compressor stations would be along the line. One time they said 1, the next time they said 4. When they were asked what would be the fuel for the compressors, they said it'd be the natural gas. According to national data, compressor stations burn 7% of the natural gas coming through the pipeline. That's what's coming into our environment. It also has the potential of methane escaping through the burning. It's in the compressor stations. I also did not particularly like when they were asked about would open trenches be left in the neighborhoods at night. The answer was, oh no, we'll bury the pipe the day that it's put in. In fact, Spectra, Williams, Columbia very openly state that the trenches are dug, particularly in rock, it will take longer. The trenches will be open, the pipes will be laid alongside the trench, then big construction equipment, the pipe laying equipment that weighs 60 tons will come in and have to lift the pipes for them to be welded. Once they're welded, they'll be lowered into the trenches. At that time, they'll be inspected again and tested. All the welds that need to be fixed will be fixed at that time, and then, and only then, will backfilling begin. That will not occur in one day, it will not occur in 1 week, it may not even occur in 1 month. You guys have now just said you want to negotiate with people that gave misleading information or no information, so I don't quite know how anybody in here can trust whatever they say, because everything that was said the other night was absolutely either misleading or absolutely false. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Brad Klein, 4656 Susanna Drive. I just wanted to say initially that the citizens of Montgomery County really appreciate your efforts last Wednesday night. I think you folks really did your homework, and I was impressed with how prepared you seemed. And I admire the fact that you did not back down when you were given evasive answers and tried to persist and get answers to these questions. That's in sharp contrast to the, I was looking for the appropriate word, but I think the gentleman before me just really summed it up with the term appalling. I was like appalled at the evasive and empty answers that were provided by EQT and the NextEra representatives. It just seemed like a sham. These gentlemen, I don't know if it was a performance or what, but to the public it seemed that they did not know really very much about their own project, and this was quite scary to people in the audience. And I was again appalled when Chris Sherman said that he thought that your questions were unfair when you were certainly just asking about the health and safety of your constituents. I just found that just very surprising. After hearing the few answers that were provided last week, I have even more concerns now about this project. Based on what the representative said, I was surprised that they had never taken on a project of this size. I believe the gentleman said that the biggest project that they took on with a pipeline near this size was about 30 miles, and this is going to be a 300-mile project. I was concerned about the fact of the distance that is supposedly going to exist between shut-off valves and the amount of time that it would take to shut those valves off. I think, from what they said, it sounds like there would just be a tremendous amount of gas escaping in the event of in an event that would require a valve shut-off. The gentleman said there's really no restriction on how close they can get to the power lines. I find that scary. The inspection frequency, it's like supposedly 7 years after it's complete, every 7 years after it's completed. That seems kind of scary to me. The fact that there's not going to be 24/7 security on equipment and on the ditches that are dug is scary, for children and unwitting adults alike. And again, I could not believe that they had not even calculated the blast radius in the event of an accident for a 42-inch pipeline. And again, I thank you for the hard work you've done. I appreciate the resolution that was passed. I also think it would have had more oomph if the original was passed, but I don't want to seem ungrateful. I'm very grateful for the fact that you have passed this resolution. I ask you to continue to stand with the citizens of Montgomery County in any way that you can. Again, even though you can't, reverse a FERC decision, you certainly can influence their thinking by showing resistance in any way you can. Maybe, the Department of Health could pass some kind of resolution saying this is a danger to the health of a potential danger to the health of the public. Maybe you can, join with other supervisor boards to voice your opposition in summation, and maybe, address other legislators and withhold permits, whatever it takes, to try to show people your resolve, including this resolution. And again, I'm very grateful for your efforts, and I thought you did a great job last week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Moneyhun. I live at 906 South Main Street in Blacksburg. I'm trying to take these folks at face value, and I actually believe them when they say that they don't necessarily know what the compression is, and they haven't done a project this big, and they're not aware that we live in karst terrain, and they're not sure what's going to happen when an earthquake comes by. So, all those things are really alarming, but I'm also taking them at face value, as I think you are, when they're saying and inviting us to come and speak to them and talk with them. So I would propose to you that we need to have as much information possible for them to make the right route decisions that they can. They may think our questions are unfair, but they're actually, that can only be coming from a place of lack of information. Our questions are very fair from our perspective, because we're a very informed community. If there's one asset that Montgomery County has, it's information. We're a smart place, and we have all the information these people need to know that this is not where they want to be. So we need to give it to them. And I really do appreciate your efforts to try to protect our property values. Obviously, that's the vested interest for us all. But there's also a lot more at stake here. That's not the only value we have in our community. The natural areas that we have are a large part of our revenue sources as well. And the clean water that we have is invaluable. If a pipeline comes through here and destroys everybody's wells, and we have to go start building water pipelines for everybody, can you imagine? Can you imagine? We already can't afford our schools. What are we going to do when we can't afford to bring water to our citizens? So, good luck, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Margaret Ralston. I live at 2124 Mount Tabor Road in Blacksburg. The other day I had quite a shock. I happened to visit my mother, and I looked at the TV, and there was I-73, and I said, oh my God, it's back. And it blew my mind to see that. And your resolution may or may not do much good, because we don't have much power, as we all know, unless we all stand together. Even if we manage to get this particular company that seems to have a very poor track record for leakage and all that stuff, managed to get, so they can't come through. There's these other guys waiting to come run over us because we're rural. And, oh yeah, we got a couple of subdivisions that, yeah, we'll run that through. We'll scare everybody by putting it on a map to go through that neighborhood. So then they'll say, oh, put it through the National Forest. Let's go trash the National Forest. It'll protect us. The whole system is just awful. But this pipeline's going to come back, even if we get rid of this one. We need to keep vigilant about it. I recommend that, the other day I was up at Bellevue Winery, and I was talking to the owner there, and I suggested that he get together with the tourist people and start preparing why it's not good for this county. I said, as the board, you probably know who all the key players are in the tourist board, the chambers of commerce. Ask them to really put together information that can be presented to FERC. Invite FERC to come early to talk about these issues, because it's going to keep coming up. Maybe Mountain Valley won't show up. By the way, I really love the name Mountain Valley, and the fact that their presentation, they had this beautiful picture of what we love about this area. They had the chutzpah, for lack of a word, to use that image. Why they don't have a stripe going through where there's a big swath? That makes me ill to see that. And the name just makes me sick. It should be gas pipeline going through rural America. But anyway, I-73 is coming back. We need to pay attention to it. We need to give the support to Roanoke to get 220 and those people to get those areas fixed that need to be fixed. I don't know how far along they've gotten on the development of 220 or 58 or all that. I know that they've worked on it in the last 19 years. But they still need money because Richmond won't send it west of Richmond. They keep the NHS money, National Highway System money, and send it east. They don't send it this way, and so they're still hurting over there to get those roads finished the way they need to be safe. We don't need Giles County trashed, and all through Brush Mountain and so forth, all that trashed. But as they were saying about putting the pipeline along an interstate, I was reading an article by a Canadian author about some of the issues about putting it right along an interstate, and I think one of the things he talked about was the fact if it blew up, it would screw up commerce. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why not. Well, if they blow up a 760 or a power line, it also messes things up, but it's easier to fix a power line than a highway. My last thing I want to mention is I did send you all links to, if you hadn't seen that sinkhole that opened up in Florida, people are standing there and all of a sudden the neighbor's car fell in a hole. And if these guys can't figure out karst topography is not safe, then FERC should just write them off as writing to building a pipeline anywhere. Because obviously that pipeline is going to be in that situation. But thank you folks very, very much. I know the decision you made today was a tough one. I never read the original thing because I didn't see it. And I do understand why you wanted to add the extra, and I really understand why you wanted to keep it the way it was, and I kind of like that. And I understand you're standing up for how you felt, so it's too bad it wasn't unanimous, but I don't think it makes a whole heck of a lot of difference, because the fact that you go on record that you're against it is the point. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Seeing no one else coming forward, I'll close the public address session. Next item is County Attorney's Report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County Administrator's Report.
Mr. Chair, just one item I was going to mention. One thing I'm very proud of in Montgomery County is, even though we're almost 400 employees, we're all very close and a tight family. We have one department in the county, our Department of General Services, that has suffered several losses in the last couple of weeks. In the last 3 weeks, 2 of the employees' mothers passed away, and then, as you're probably aware, one of our employees, who was 34 years old, passed away unexpectedly Monday morning. So they're having a very difficult time right now. Josh Dumford was the employee that passed away. His funeral's tomorrow in Wytheville. There'll be a number of us that are going to drive down to support the family and the department. But I just ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers. It's been a tough couple of weeks downstairs. And that's all I've got.
You want to go in right now?
Do you want me
Yeah.
to do what we talked about?
Yeah, go ahead, before everybody leaves.
Before all of you leave, I want to tell you what a very important thing happened while we were at VACO, and it's very good for our board, and it's very good for the individual who was a part of it. I do want to say that Ms. Biggs is chair of our board, but now she's been on the board of directors at VACO for a good while, but now she has moved up into second vice president, and so this week, yesterday at VACO conference, she was confirmed and installed as the second vice president for VACO, and that's quite an honor, and she's very deserving of it. So I just wanted to be sure that not only the people who are here, but the people who are in our television audience know that we have a very good person who's in this particular position. And not only that, but usually what happens in VACO, once you get one of these executive positions, then you move on up to first vice president, then you move up to president-elect, and then you become president. So we look forward to that eventuality, but we know that Ms. Biggs will give it all that she has, which she has done as a director, as second vice president. So we're very proud of her, and we really wish her well in this particular office that she has gotten. So we thank her for her hard work and what has been a trying time for her too, as we were at VACO. So Ms. Biggs, thank you very much, and thank you for representing us. And those of you who are here, we need to give her a round of applause. Now,
Okay.
I've gotten started. Is it okay if I just
Yeah,
finish?
just go ahead, and then we'll just,
I
let you go
have
slow.
little to report. Actually, I just attended quite a few meetings since we last got together. And what we would do, some of them, like PDCs and others, will put out the minutes. But I did want to tell you that I have asked, and I do want to talk to the administration about this. I have asked Michael St. Jean, who is our director of the Airport Authority, our director of the airport, really, that is located just off of Hubbard and Ramble Road, and to come and talk to us and tell us and show us pictures about what will happen with the new airport movement. It's all part of a very big situation because it will affect land at Virginia Tech. It will tie in with the new roads that have to be built, will tie in with the Southgate movement, because the part of Southgate will be closed off and a new road will go through. But I think one of the good parts about it is that the federal government pays 95%. The state government pays 3%, and we only have to pay 2% of the cost of the whole project. So it will be a good thing. And yet we want to be sure that the citizens in the county and those who live nearby, it is an executive airport. It is not a commercial airport. There will be no commercial flights in and out of it. But what it will do is allow many of the corporate partners that we have here in Montgomery County, it will allow them to fly their corporate jets in and be able to fuel up, which is a major source of revenue, and then fly to the West Coast. Right now, our runway is not long enough for them to fully fill their tanks and fly any further than Kansas or the middle of the country. So there are a lot of things that can come of that, and it's part of our economic development. Probably the only other thing that you're interested in, and again, it's Pepper's Ferry. It's a wastewater treatment plant that we have a very small part of, but which is growing, and it's talk about water safety and everything else. Of course, it ultimately empties into the New River, but I do serve on that authority, and I think it would be nice if we asked Mr. Walcraft, who's head of it, to come and talk about that. So, with that, I'm finished. I do want to say to those of you who are still here, I really appreciate your being here. I appreciate your kind words for what went on last Wednesday night. I do appreciate and respect your opinions. I also respect the opinions of all members of this board, and I know that we will continue to stand with you and we will continue to work. And I am not a person who wants to say, it's okay, but just don't put it in my backyard. It's not okay. It's not okay. And I have said that to the powers that be, and I will continue to say that. So thank you all very much, and please know that we still support you, and that together we're going to see what we can do, although we know that our hands are very tied because of what the federal government can do and the right to eminent domain. So we're not giving up, and we're not backing down. We're just simply saying, okay, well, we'll talk with you because you've asked us to. And that's my report for the evening. And I look forward to continuing to work with you all.
Thank you. Supervisor Biggs.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that I really want to thank the citizens that continue to email and come to our meetings and to continue to educate us. And I appreciate the pipeline company being here also. And I think it's good that they're sending people to hear, because this is going to be a continuing process. And I think that the more they hear, the more educated they become also. Following up on what Ms. Perkins said, I do want to say that when VACO meets again in February, Ms. Perkins will be sworn in as a director on the VACO board, so that's another plus for our county. We'll have representation on the VACO board and on the executive committee. So congratulations to Ms. Perkins for being elected a director for the board. Now, following along with that, while we were at VACO, when we weren't talking about the pipeline issues with all the different counties, and it was really interesting to see, all the different networking going on about that. But while we were there, we also had a lot of different meetings that we attended. And I wanted to make a personal comment about a meeting that I happened to moderate that was about county and school board relations, community leaders' common goals. And what was interesting about it is it was very well attended, even though we had a competing workshop with General Assembly members. And one thing I came away from was that we are so very fortunate in Montgomery County to have the kind of relationship we do have between our two boards, and that took a lot of work to get there, but we do have a good working relationship, and it all goes back to communication and all the different things all of us do in that regard. The Educational Steering Committee met, and Ms. Perkins and I both serve on that, and again, it's the same as last time. We're fighting just to maintain funding and having the state pay for what they're supposed to pay for. The meeting was pretty well attended. I think at one point there were 1,000 people there, and it was one of the largest that they've ever had. And the information that we gathered was good. And some of the things that are going to be coming up, I'd like to encourage our board members, if you want to become active in VACO and serve on a committee, the committee forms, we can get you one, and they're due back to VACO by December 31st. There are also educational opportunities if supervisors want to take advantage of them through the Virginia Certified County Supervisors Program, and they talked a little bit about that. One thing Rick Boucher came and shared with us, since he's part of the Ethics Committee for the state, are what they call the Commission to Ensure Integrity and Public Confidence in State Government. A lot of the things they're doing will influence us as local elected officials in reporting things and filling out forms, and they are gathering input through December 3rd, I believe it is, and are very concerned about what local officials and state officials think is needed to help make the process go, I guess, smoother. Because right now it's sort of complicated the way they have everything going. And this all first came about because of what happened with the governor and his wife, the former governor and his wife. So it's something that we need to be aware of, and I really thank Marty for trying to keep us updated on everything, because it's sort of complicated there. And let's see, another good thing, Mr. Meadows and I went to the Virginia First meeting today, and usually when we go to a Virginia's First meeting, it's sort of, you don't get really excited about it, but what I'm really excited about is there's some new leadership. It comes in the form of a new executive director named Danny Wilson, and he's really, really trying to pull everything together and make it very understandable and pull all the people together. So actually, I felt like it was a positive meeting, and I wanted to report that to you all, and that's into my report. Thanks. Oh, and thank you for all your support getting me to that position, because I couldn't have done it if you guys hadn't passed a resolution to support me in the first place. And thank you, Ruth, for helping me get all that together. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
And thank you. Supervisor Tuck.
just simply remind everybody, we got that talent show on Saturday night.
What time does it start again?
7 o'clock.
7.
At Christiansburg High School, and there's a lot of great, very talented kids throughout the county, and so I'm looking forward to doing that, and that's it.
That's going to be fun.
Supervisor King.
Just one quick thing. Me and Miss Biggs went to a seminar while we was gone over the weekend about Virginia Department of Health they put on. And I'd like to hand this out. It's got a little bit of everything in about New River Valley, about the population change and shocks. I mean, it's just got everything in it. I believe you'd find it really interesting if you'd sit down and read it. Me and Miss Biggs, we sit in there, and I think we learned a lot in it. I think we really did. And if you read some of this, you're going to be surprised at what you find in it. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Creed.
No.
Okay, and I think it's me next. Okay.
Yeah, pass this.
First, I guess I had a couple of things, and one, they've already been said by the supervisors here about our citizens coming, supporting us and educating us, and I never knew electronics would come in so well, but our citizens have moved a whole lot of information to our fingertips, and that was really, really good. And I didn't say this, and I should have said it, when people talk about Ebola and all of this, but was it 2 meetings ago, Mr. Meadows, that the New River Health District came and educated our at our Fire and Rescue Commission, educating them about precautions in dealing with suspect cases and so forth. And then what make it so good is that they have a 24/7 number that they can call, and even if they ran into problems maybe at a hospital or facility, they could call this number, and these people really had the power to get a hospital to take some precautions, where if the hospital didn't want to take any, they could contact, when they were in doubt, they could contact these health officials and they could tell them what's what. So that was a great experience. And so I didn't share that with you, but to let you know that our fire and rescue people are prepared to deal with suspected or Ebola cases. Again, I'd like to thank my board members for the support that they've given me, and we can agree to disagree, but we're still a team, and we're really concerned about the pipeline and the resolution. We only wish that we could even do more, that we had some kind of statutory legal way of doing more, but the resolution may be symbolic, but it sends a message that we're standing with our people. And that's all I have. Any other business? We'll adjourn. God, I forgot to ask Carol for her report.